So, how many of the icons on the Bambu Studio's toolbar have you clicked? When I was on submarines, we had to learn every part of the submarine to be able to get our dolphins. And I figured that kind of mentality can probably transfer over to 3D printing. So today, 10 toolbar tricks that'll save you time on your next print. Hi, I'm Rick. Thanks for finding your way back to my channel. So last week I talked about some of the settings on the Bambu slicer, or settings that can be applied across different types of slicers. Today I want to focus on the toolbar and some specialties about that. So let's get right into it. So here we are on the Bambu slicer page. And across the top, this is called the toolbar area in here. There's a number of tools here. Some of them are very easy to understand, like add a file, add another bed plate, move, rotate, resize. But we're going to look at 10 tools that I believe are tricks that beginning 3D printers aren't using enough of. And we'll start with this one right here called orient. Let me bring a file in here to show you how this works. This is a very basic example, but this is a name card that we use at our craft shows. So let me rotate it a little bit. So let's say it comes in like this. That's not a good way to print the file. So all you have to do is you just click on the file, hit Auto Orient, and it brings it down just like this. But that leads me into another trick that I want to look at, and it's a little bit over here, and it's called Lay on Face. So when you look at this looks like it'll print just fine, but we have put words on the front here, and if we print it like this, it'll have filament changes at every level as it prints this. So we'd rather print this with this face down. Now I could go through and do the rotate like I was just doing and try to find the right angle, or I could come over to here and hit this. And if you see all these things, these are faces that it'll try to lay on. So you try to find the one that gives you the best amount on the face. Auto Orient will give you a general, pretty good orientation of it, but you may want to work with it on your own and try the lay on face and find the best angle for printing. So that's our first two tricks that I want to talk about. The next one is arrange all objects. Let me bring in another one to go through this. Okay, so this is just a little flexi fidget that is really popular with a lot of our friends. And so we have one here, but I want to do more. And I want to know the truth. How many of you will go and clone it and put in 7 of them? Okay, and now we need to get them. So you see some of them off the plate. So we'll start moving these around here, moving these to the right place. There's a much easier way of doing this. So if we go back and do this again, now I'm going to do 10 this time for a specific purpose. So let me clone 10 of them. And again, you'll see that we get the error for them being off the plate. So we just got to auto arrange. I'll unclick this for the time and hit arrange. And now we got a 9 on this plate, and it gave us a new plate, which put the other 2 on it. So what if I auto arrange, but I allow it to rotate? So as you see, these are star shape and they're a little off shape. So what if I auto arrange it with auto rotate on? Now it was able, once it rotated them, it was able to get 10 on here instead of just the 9. So most of the time, if you're doing regular shaped objects, it's pretty easy, just hit auto arrange. But if you got some different shapes, you may want to try it with that rotate to see if you can get more on the plate. And that's the auto arrange tool. So the next one I want to talk about is called the variable layer height. And I'm going to bring in this large model as an example. So how many times have you gone into print and you printed a character or something, and you look at the top of his head and you get these concentric circles? Let me slice this and you'll see what I mean. If you look this, you see all these rings as it comes to a peak, it's trying to keep the same layer height as it's printing. And it causes these circles, which in some cases, depending on what your layer height that you're using, here it's a 0.2. If you use a larger one, it could even be more pronounced. So the purpose of the variable layer lines is to adjust the layer lines as you come to the top. So how it works is you just hit adaptive and you see it change colors. And if you look over in this graph on the side, it tells you what these layer lines are. So if you look right now at the very top, it's 0.08 millimeters layer height. But if you go down a bit, it goes up to 0.28 layer height. So this allows you to adjust the layer height to smooth out some of those things at the top. So you hit adaptive and you can adjust this to get even more quality, but again, you're going to sacrifice more speed in doing this, or you can go the other way. And then the next button you hit is the smooth button, which smooth it further between the different layer heights. It'll allow you to get a better finish in certain areas. If you have something with a lot of rounded corners, a lot of peaks, the variable layer height may be something that you want to look at. The next thing we're going to look at is called the cut function. Again, let me bring in the file for you. So what I have here is just a basic statue. And again, consider this if I enlarged it to like 200%. Well, at some point, I'm going to hit the max of what my printer can do. And so what can I do about that? Or if I'm trying to bring in a large animal that has a big tail sticking out, how can I print that? That's where the cut function comes in. So let's look at this. This is our file here. What if I could cut this and print it in parts and put it back together again? And that's exactly what the cut function can do for you. That's that little one with the line here. You select cut, and now it gives you this line. If you look at it, this is where it's going to cut at. And now I can adjust that. I can move it, the square, I can move it up, and I can also rotate it. Let's say I want to try to cut it right at that little skinny part in the neck, which shouldn't be too noticeable when I put it back together. So let's try to get it right to there. You can see I still got a part sticking up there. So now I have a cut line. And again, it'll cut through there and it'll cut through the hair in the back. So now I can have it in two parts. But the other thing you can do here is you have this button called Add Connectors. And what you can do is you can add connectors into here. It's got different styles and different shapes. So let's just do the basic circle here. So all I can do is go in there, put in a couple of those. I can adjust the sizes to make them larger and then hit confirm. And now they're there. Now I perform the cut. And so there's my top with my connectors in there. And there's the other part. I can put another plate or if there's room on this plate with the holes in it that you can connect and glue it back together when you're done. And that's the basics of the cut function. So for this next tool, I'm going to bring back this model I was just looking at. This is the paint tool right here. So I've gone in depth in a previous video about using the painting tool and what you can do with that. Let's just show some of the basics here. So we highlighted and we're in the paint function. Now we have the different colors that we have assigned to whichever printer. In the case of the P1S, this is the AMS that's with it. And you have the different tool types. For example, you have just a basic circle. If you wanted to do basic coloring, I can just go in here and start coloring. start making her hair black, things like that. Not the most efficient way to do it. You could do the same thing with the sphere or with the triangles. And then another one in here is a height range. So let's say I want to give her a pinstripe on her shirt. So I just click at one level, click at another level, and now I have a range to paint. And so we'll go to the next one, which is the fill. Now the fill hits different areas. For example, if you look right now, trying to color this, it's doing very small areas. But if I can increase the angle a little bit, now it sees that full thing. So now if I want to give her black on that part of the shirt, go up here, give her white on this part and white on that part. So it seems pretty simple, but you need to play with this. For the next tool, we're going to bring in this same model just to explain what this is. So how many of you, when you've sliced a model, seen these white things all over the place and tried to figure out, is there a problem with my print? So what you're seeing is the seam lines. So at each level of the print, it starts and stops at the same point, and it creates a seam. And again, if you have a big square model, you may have the seam right on front or right on a prominent area. So what this next tool does, it's called the seam painter. It allows you to show where the seams will be. So what you can do is you can take your brush size and you can adjust it again like you did other places and try to put the seams in less prominent areas. If there's something with a lot of relief where it won't be known, you can put your seams there as a way to try to hide them. And I'll slice it. And now you see it's trying to put the seams where I wanted them instead of where it decided to put them. You can see there's still some seams in other areas, but again, they're in the backside. So the seam painter allows you to put the seams where you want. The next tool to talk about is brim ears, or what they're commonly known as mouse ears. I'm going to bring in an item that we sell at craft shows. It's called a Cascade Connect. So we've got a very tall print, and one thing we can do is we can set up our brim. Let's set up a painted brim to try to help it secure to the plate. Okay, so here's our print, and you see it's created a brim all the way around, which we'd have to remove and clean up. What if there was a way just to put selective brims at some of these sharp corners to make sure they stay down? So let's go back. We'll get rid of the brim. We'll put no brim, but we'll go here to this tool right here called brim ears. And what we do is just select it and go to these corners, and you'll see the little gray dot show up. You can just get on the corners, and now we have the brims to support it, but we didn't have to do it all the way around. And that's the simple use of the brim ears. For the last two, I'm going to bring in an articulated animal that we made for a friend of ours who has horses. And what we're going to look at is the split to objects and split to parts. So let's say, for example, this came as two horses, but they were merged together. Again, here, we merged them in here, so they're still separate. But if it came in this way, we could just click on them and separate them. And now we can work with each one individually. And that's the basics of the split to objects. So for the second one of these, it's called split to parts. So if you have an articulated item, such as this horse, you can click on this split to parts. And again, looking at this looks like it didn't do anything until you look over here at the plate. Now, each of these sections, it's its own individual parts. So if you wanted to move them out, or if you wanted to clone it and make the horse longer, you could do that. Or if you wanted to paint each one separately, it makes it a lot easier to paint. That's the basics of the split to parts. So there's my 10 tricks located up here in the toolbar. Again, there's other things you can do with this, but these are some of the things I think beginners need to look at. So there you have it. Which of these toolbar items have you used in the past? Leave me a comment down below. Or if there's other items on the toolbar that a beginning 3D printer should know about, also leave that in the comments below. I'd like to thank you for joining my channel. And if you found it useful, please like and subscribe. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Now, in the coming weeks, I plan to tell you about some of the bigger projects that I'm working on and I'm kind of excited about. And we'll work through those. But if there's any other how-to on the slicer or any other parts of 3D printing that you'd like me to cover, please leave that in the comments. So again, thank you. And until next time, happy printing.